Beijing's former top official in Hong Kong, Xu Jia-tun, dies in Los Angeles. Doctors' groups protest against proposed medical council reforms. And suicide bomb blast at Istanbul's main international airport kills at least 41.
Good evening. Xu Jia-tun, a former top Beijing official in Hong Kong before the handover, has died at the age of 100. He's best known for fleeing to the U.S. after the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown. Jameson Wong has more.
The Jiangsu native served as director of the Hong Kong branch of Xinhua News Agency from 1983 to 1990. At the time, Xinhua was Beijing's de facto diplomatic mission in the city. As one of the key figures during the handover negotiations, he spoke out against electoral reform in Hong Kong in 1985. And during the 1989 student movement across the border, Xu paid a visit to students staging a hunger strike outside Xinhua's office in Wan Chai. Some say he further showed his sympathy to the movement when he gave tacit permission to the pro-Beijing newspaper One Way Po to run an editorial with only 4 Chinese characters meaning deep sorrow in protests against the declaration of martial law in Beijing in May. But after the June 4th Tiananmen Square crackdown, Xu blamed the British for the confidence crisis in Hong Kong. In February 1990, he was replaced as head of Xinhua in Hong Kong by Deputy Foreign Minister Joan An. Xu shocked the world a few months later when he fled to the U.S. He was expelled from the Communist Party the following year.
Even if you are loyal to the Communist Party for your lifetime and sell Communist Party policy, actually your body is the most honest. You have to leave China and go to the USA for security.
Across the political divide, Tam Yu-chung of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong remembered Xu as open-minded and willing to work with others. And since leaving China, Xu had expressed his desire to end his exile. Commentator Johnny Lau pointed out that Xu never requested American asylum or revealed government secrets to the U.S. in hopes of returning home one day. But that was not to be. Xu Jia-tun died in Los Angeles today, age 100. Jameson Wong, TVB News.
The second reading of the Medical Registration Amendment Bill was adjourned today due to a lack of quorum. This comes after some lawmakers and doctors protested against proposed reforms of the Medical Council. Caleb Leung tells us more.
The proposed Medical Registration Amendment Bill aims to add more lay members to the Medical Council. The government said this may improve the Council's transparency and efficiency in handling complaints. Currently, the Council has 28 members. Half of them are elected by doctors, the other half are appointed by the Chief Executive. The government is now proposing to add 4 more lay members to the Council. But critics said there would be more appointed members than the ones chosen by doctors. Secretary for Food and Health Ko Weng-man said 3 of the new lay members are selected by patients' rights groups and 1 is nominated by the Consumer Council. Therefore, people shouldn't worry that the government is trying to control the medical sector. Ko also said he is concerned that some lawmakers might cast their vote based on political reasons. Lawmaker Kwok Ka-ki has proposed amendments to the bill, hoping to maintain the ratio of doctors in the council. Lawmaker Albert Ho said the Democratic Party supports Kwok's proposed amendments.
We would support resumption of second reading. We would support Dr. Kwok's amendment. But in case the amendments were rejected, then we would not support the third reading.
Members of various doctors' groups staged a rally outside the Electrical Building this afternoon, opposing the proposed reforms of the Medical Council. Despite the health chief's reassurance, they are still skeptical of the government's aim in the reform.
Some doctors say they are concerned that the government may increase its power over the sector through appointing more lay members to the medical council.
Protesters also said increasing the number of council members will not increase the efficiency in handling complaints.
The problem is if you increase only people who are not doctors, then the process might even be lengthened because they don't really know what's happening.
The Medical Association said if the bill is passed in LegCo, it may apply for a judicial review. Caleb Bloom, TVB News.
In Turkey, 3 suicide bombers opened fire and blew themselves up at Istanbul's main international airport last night. 41 people, including a Chinese national, were killed and 147 others injured. The Turkish Prime Minister called the carnage a terror attack carried out by Islamic State militants. People at the packed Ataturk airport began fleeing in panic amid the horror of gunfire, followed by bombs exploding in the arrival area. Scores of bloody, dead and wounded victims came pouring out of the terminal and were rushed off in ambulances. Eyewitnesses said between the shooting and the bombs exploding, they could barely escape the carnage.
People were shooting on one side, and we all ran the other way. And then the bombs went off, and people started running the other way, and there's more shooting. People were very badly injured. Like, one guy had holes in his back from shrapnel.
This man said a bomb in or near the X-ray machine exploded, killing everyone around it. Prime Minister Binali Yildirim was rushed to the scene. He said it's clear this was a coordinated terror attack on Europe's 3rd busiest airport, aimed at killing large numbers of innocent people. Passengers insist airport security was tight.
We went through 2 additional checkpoints just to get to our gate.
Police say the attackers came to the airport in taxis. Each of them gunned down several people before blowing themselves up. Police also confirmed they were able to shoot 2 of the attackers right before they reached security checkpoint at the main arrivals hall, but they still blew themselves up. As crime scene investigators pore over the evidence, U.S. counterterrorism officials insist ISIS is at the top of the list of suspects. Just last week, ISIS deployed dozens of militants from Syria to Turkey with the intention of carrying out large attacks during the holy month of Ramadan. Outside a hospital where most of the wounded were taken, worried relatives wailed in anguish. While leaders around the world expressed condolences, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is adamant the world must do more to stop terrorism.
That this is daily fare. And that's why I say the first challenge we need to face is countering non-state violent actors for a host of reasons.
European leaders are pushing Britain toward the exit door, warning Prime Minister David Cameron there's no turning back after his country's unprecedented vote to leave the EU. They're pressing for a quick British departure plan to quell worldwide anxiety about the continent's future. Alan Booknia reports.
David Cameron frustrated the EU leaders at a summit meeting in Brussels by refusing to trigger Article 50, which would pave the way for a Brexit. He said he would leave negotiations on future relations to his successor.
We need to get this right. We shouldn't take too much time, but we need to take some time to get it right. And triggering Article 50 will work better if both sides know what they're trying to achieve in the negotiation that's about to begin.
But leader after leader rejected Cameron's pleas for favorable conditions once Britain leaves, insisting there would be no cherry-picking for advantageous trade conditions.
Les règles sont les règles.
Rules are rules, said French President François Hollande. It's not about punishing the United Kingdom or the British people. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said until Article 50 is filed, there can be no negotiations. She added she saw no way back on Britain's decision. The European Commission president expressed frustration with the Leave campaign's lack of an exit plan.
All those having campaigned for the Leave, they are telling us we need some time. I thought that if you want to leave, you have a plan, you have a project, you have a global picture. They don't have it.
In Scotland, where the vast majority voted to stay in the EU, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon wouldn't rule out another independence referendum. She said the promise of guaranteed access to the EU in the 2014 referendum no longer holds true.
Everything must be on the table to protect our place in Europe, including a second independence referendum.
In London, several thousand pro-EU demonstrators made an unplanned march on the Parliament buildings following a peaceful rally in Trafalgar Square. Alan Bucknia, TVB News.
Riot police and demonstrators have clashed in Paris during violent protests against a labor reform bill. Riot police had to use tear gas and batons to beat back protesters. Thousands of French residents are angry over changes that make hiring and firing easier and give employers more say in work and pay negotiations. Still, France's Senate approved the bill yesterday with 185 votes for and 156 votes against. The protest was the latest in President François Hollande's 4-month confrontation with the unions. The bill has divided the governing socialists and dragged the unpopular leader's ratings to new lows 10 months before a presidential election.
In Washington, a special congressional committee has released its final investigation report on the 2012 attack on the U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi, Libya. 4 Americans were killed in that incident. House Republicans criticize Obama administration officials, the military, and the CIA for their response as the attack unfolded. But there is no smoking gun pointing to wrongdoing by then Secretary of State and now Democratic presidential frontrunner Hillary Clinton.
And if you do read the report, I think what will become manifest to you is what has become manifest to us, which are 2 different images. The image on the one hand of what was happening in Benghazi during the relevant time period, and the image on the other hand of the decisions made and not made in Washington during that same time period.
While this unfortunately took on a partisan tinge, I want us to stay focused on what I've always wanted us to stay focused on, and that is the important work of diplomacy and development. So I'll leave it to others to characterize this report, but I think it's pretty clear it's time to move on.
German automaker Volkswagen has agreed to pay about $15 billion to settle consumer lawsuits and government allegations that it cheated on emissions tests. The deal involves some 475,000 owners of Volkswagen and diesel Audis who thought they were buying high-performance, environmentally friendly cars. They later found out the emissions violate U.S. pollution laws. Volkswagen agreed to either buy back or repair the vehicles, although it hasn't yet developed a fix for the problem. VW is still facing billions more in fines, as well as possible criminal charges.
It will allow the consumers to recover what they sunk into these cars. And in many instances, these are consumers who have loans on these cars. And so it will allow consumers to obtain relief from carrying debt on a car that's not legal to drive.
These settlements send a very strong, very loud, very clear message. Do not try this in our home. Don't try this in the United States. Don't try to fool Mother Nature. Don't try to fool consumers.
And when we come back, 7 plots of land to be put up for sale in the 3rd quarter. Green light for former TVB General Manager Stephen Chan to appeal to the top court. And robots to help boost autistic children's communication skills.